Okay, dear students, today we are going to deliberate upon certain other scenes of the play, and we have discussed up to Act 1, Scene 3. Now we will be on Act 1, Scene 4, which is at page number 42 in the booklet. You have page number 42. This Act 1, Scene 4 takes place at a platform before the castle. We have been informed earlier that a ghost of Hamlet Senior has been seen by the guards of the castle. They inform about it to Horatio. Horatio comes there, sees the ghost of Hamlet Senior, wants to talk to the ghost, but the ghost doesn't reply. Horatio goes back to call on Hamlet and tell him that his father's ghost has been seen before the castle. Since the ghost represents a supernatural happening, it means there is something bad which might have befallen the state. So, the premonition which the ghost's appearance represents is typical of a connection between the natural and human affairs. Then, in another scene, we saw how Hamlet is solicited by his uncle Claudius, King Claudius, and we come to know the sad and melancholy state of Hamlet, who is very sad at the death of his father. Although Claudius talks to Hamlet in very conciliatory tones, in very affectionate manner, but Hamlet is not convinced. And we saw how after the king leaves, Hamlet gives expression to his sorrow about the death of his father and about the hasty remarriage of his mother through a soliloquy. This soliloquy represents Hamlet's desire to die, to commit suicide. He is not satisfied with the present state of affairs, where his uncle has become king, his father has suddenly died, and his mother has married to the king. Hamlet unfavorably compares his uncle Claudius to his dead father. For him, his father was like a ghost, while his uncle is like a beast, an animal, and he is not able to understand why his mother has married his uncle in such a haste. So, up to now, we have some information, and then in another scene, we also saw a domestic conversation between Polonius and Ophelia and Laertes. Laertes, like an elder brother, tries to convince his sister Ophelia that she shouldn't have any affair with Hamlet. He tells her that Hamlet is a prince, and princes are not free in matters of marriage. So he should be beware of Hamlet. Polonius also says more or less the same thing to Ophelia. And Ophelia, like a dutiful daughter, like an obedient sister and dutiful daughter, she agrees to follow whatever her father and her brother tells her to do. Now in Act 1, Scene 4, we see Hamlet goes to meet the ghost. So the scene opens at the platform before the castle. Hamlet, Horatio, and Marcellus arrive at the spot. Hamlet informs his companions that the king is busy in merrymaking. Actually, there is a sound of cannon firing. According to Hamlet, this cannon firing represents the number of pegs, the number of times the king is drinking with his fellow revelers. Hamlet is not happy to see this trait in the king. He rather criticizes him and tells his friends that a person might have many virtues, but even if a king has one small weakness, that destroys his character. Now the ghost enters on the scene. Excuse me, Rekha and Pinky. अपनी आवाज ऑफ करिए बच्चों. आपकी आवाज चल रही है. ऑडियो को ऑफ कीजिए. रेनू, पिंकी दोनों की ऑडियो ऑन है. ऑडियो कीजिए. Yes. So the ghost enters and beckons Hamlet to follow him. Hamlet unhesitatingly follows the ghost. When his friends try to stop Hamlet from following the ghost alone, he warns them, "Unhand me, gentlemen, unhand me, gentlemen." And then he further says, if anybody tries to stop him, he will kill him. So it shows that Hamlet at times is able to take action. He is not as passive as he is usually represented. So this is a very small scene in which we get information about Claudius being a drunkard, as well as we get an information how Hamlet follows the ghost. Now we come to Act 1, Scene 5th. In this particular scene, Hamlet talks with Ghost. The ghost tells him that he is ghost of his father, Hamlet the senior, and he says that he has become a ghost because he has died unnaturally. He says that he was sleeping in a garden. Then Claudius, his brother, came from behind him and poured some poison into his ear. And in this way, he says, I died. And it was given to people, it was told to people that the king has died because he has been bitten by a snake. But actually, it was his own brother Claudius who murdered him by pouring poison into his ear. The ghost tells Hamlet that it was a murder. Twinkle, twinkle.
Okay.
अपना ऑफ कीजिए, अपना ऑडियो कीजिए. Yes. So he says, ghost says that it was a murder, most foul, strange, and unnatural. We had some discussion about it that since the king was sleeping when he was killed, and sleeping is considered to be a sinful state. So the king has not only been murdered, but also has been murdered when he was not in a pure state, right? And he says that Hamlet's father has been killed by his own brother. Ghost speaks in very strong terms about the wickedness of the murderer, who is now the king, and the conduct of his wife in having married that man. The ghost does not approve of these two things, his murder and Gertrude's marriage with his murderer. And ghost lays upon Hamlet to avenge his murder. He tells him that as a son, it is his duty to take revenge, and and as a son, he must fulfill this task given to him. At the same time, the ghost tells Hamlet that he should not say anything, should not harm his mother. So he wants the revenge to be taken against Claudius, but he does not want Gertrude to be harmed by Hamlet. He says to Hamlet that the punishment to the queen should be left to the heavens, that her own conscience will punish her. Since he has married to his murderer, so she will be punished surely. But she should not be punished by any outside agency, rather, her own heart, her own conscience, her own concept of honor will punish her in due time. The ghost then goes away. Hamlet is very shocked and stunned by this strange disclosure. Till now, he thought that his father has murdered and he was sad because his father has died. But now he comes to know that his father has not died naturally, but rather has been murdered. So it's a kind of double shock for him, and he pledges to himself that he will not forget Ghost's words. At the same time, now his mother seems to him to be in uglier light, and he calls her a most pernicious woman, while his uncle, he calls his uncle a villain, and he says he is a smiling damned villain. You know, outwardly he seems to be very friendly and very warm-hearted person, but inwardly Claudius is a villain, smiling damned villain. Now his friends come. They ask Hamlet what he has talked with the ghost. Hamlet doesn't tell them anything. He doesn't give them any information, and he uses a word which is very important in understanding Hamlet's character later on. He says, from now on, I shall have an antic disposition. Antic means mad. That from now on, I shall behave like a madman. So from hearing, we get an information that the later on, The disturbed state of the mind of Hamlet is to certain extent due to his own taking the guise of a madman. So he is becoming madman on purpose, to certain extent, of course, not fully. Although he is also disturbed and he is in a great pain. But at the same time, certain actions of Hamlet can be explained because of his conscious decision to behave like a madman. So he binds his friends to secrecy about his meeting with Ghost. He tells them that they should not tell anybody that I have talked to Ghost. And as they go away, he uses two very famous lines. The time is out of joint, O cursed spite, that ever I was born to set it right. The time of out of joint. The time are disturbed. The times are bad. O cursed spite, O my cursed fate. Mera bura bhagye, mera durbhagye, that ever I was born to set it right. That it has been given me as a duty to make things correct. So we see that even just after meeting the ghost, Hamlet is troubled by the heavy duty which have been laid upon him by the ghost. And the duty is that he should kill Claudius and avenge his father's murder. But somehow Hamlet finds himself unable to perform it. He calls it his cursed spite, his fate, his ill fate that he is to make things correct. कि कितना बुरी बात है, कितना दुर्भाग्य, मेरा ही दुर्भाग्य है कि मुझे चीजों को ठीक करना है. It means he is still not fully convinced that he should carry out the murder of Claudius. Now we reach to Act 2. And we reach to Act 2, Scene 1. In Act 2, Scene 1, there is a scene in Polonius' house where Polonius is speaking to his servant Rinaldo, who is going to France to deliver some money and papers to Laertes. Polonius is sending somebody to France where Laertes, his son, is studying. And he is giving some money and some papers as parents usually do when their son or daughters, they study away. Polonius asks Rinaldo to bring him complete information regarding his son's mode of life and his activities. He tells the servant that he should spy on him, spy on Laertes. He should give him a full report what he does in Paris, who are his friends, with whom he talks, and how he should collect this information about his son. Polonius tells him that he should talk to people without telling them that he is acquainted with Laertes or Polonius, and he should himself give hints about Laertes' bad habits so that people can become more frank about revealing information about Laertes. See the situation. A father is sending somebody to collect information about his son. And how can he be supposed to collect information? By making people believe that he is enemy of Laertes, so that people can tell bad things about Laertes, and he could bring genuine information to Polonius. It doesn't give a very positive picture of a father. It is a kind of unwritten law that fathers do not spy upon their sons and daughters. But the desire to know more and more about his son, or desire to appear like an informed father, which Polonius cultivates in himself, is making him take recourse to certain actions which cannot be called moral. Right? So it gives Polonius a bad light. It makes him a person who desires to collect information about his son so that he could collect, so that he could control him, so that he could have power over him. Right? This can be the only reason that he wants to know everything about his son Laertes. Of course, he gives it out as if he is very concerned about Laertes. But this is not concern. This is somewhat kind of egotism and a desire for power, which conceals itself in the form of parental care about Laertes. And in the same scene, Ophelia enters, and Ophelia tells her father that she is feeling frightened because Hamlet has visited her in a very strange and disordered condition. Now we get information from Ophelia that Hamlet has visited Ophelia, but Hamlet is behaving like a madman. Hmm? And he was not properly dressed when he came to see Ophelia, and he had a very piteous look in his eyes. Now Polonius is quickly convinced that Hamlet is behaving in this manner because he has gone mad because of his unrequited love for Ophelia. We saw in the earlier scene, Polonius had told his daughter Ophelia to discourage Hamlet, not to come close to Hamlet, because she cannot marry him ever. Now he thinks that Hamlet is behaving in this manner because his love has been rejected by Ophelia. So he very quickly comes to the decision that the condition of Hamlet is so because of his rejection in love by Ophelia. So he thinks that Hamlet has gone mad on account of his disappointment caused to him by Ophelia's rejecting his advances under her father's orders. Hmm? Polonius now regrets having regarded Hamlet's courtship to Ophelia as mere flirtation. However, he decides to apprise the king of this development, namely Hamlet's condition, which he considers to be love madness, the very ecstasy of love. As an audience, we know otherwise. We know that Hamlet is behaving in this strange manner because of two reasons. First thing, he is behaving like a madness so as to deceive other people about himself, that he knows the truth about Claudius. Secondly, and more importantly, perhaps he knows that Ophelia's rejection of him is because of her father's disapproval. That Ophelia has rejected him under the command of her father. And this thing pains him. He doesn't like this thing. He doesn't like this too obedience or too submissive nature of Ophelia. And he perhaps somehow suspects that Ophelia is too much under the influence of her father and her brother. So he behaves in a very strange manner and tells her again and again to go to nunnery, to become a nun. He tells Ophelia that this world is not fit for her. This world is full of sinners, and if she lives in this world, she will also become a sinner. So, to escape this world, she should leave it, and become a nun. So, the kind of disposition which Hamlet has in this scene makes us think about his madness, and it brings a very relevant question whether Hamlet was really mad or he was just feigning madness. क्या हेमलेट वास्तव में पागल था या सिर्फ पागल होने का दिखावा कर रहा था? And the kind of the kind of acting or the kind of behavior Hamlet has in the scene makes us convinced that something is not right with Hamlet here. Ophelia describes it in very evocative terms. He took me by the wrist and held me hard. Hamlet came to me, get hold of my hand and caught me hard. Then goes into the length of all his arm, and with his other hand thus over his brow, he falls to such perusal of my face as he would draw it, long stage. The total behavior of Hamlet reminds us of the behavior of a bad man. Now we reach to Act 2, Scene 2. The king has been informed that Hamlet is behaving like a madman, and the king is very concerned about why this is happening. He wants to know the reason. Since Claudius is guilty, so he suspects that Hamlet knows something. Hamlet knows his secret. So he is not convinced that Hamlet has gone mad because of love or anything else. He suspects that there is some secret hiding in the mind of Hamlet. And he wants to know the reason why Hamlet is behaving in such a manner. So this scene happens in the castle, in a room, where we meet the king, the queen, Rosencrantz, Gulistan, and a number of attendants. Rosencrantz and Gulistan are two class fellows of Hamlet in Germany. King has called them from Germany so as to spy on Hamlet because he suspects Hamlet's behavior. तो किसी व्यक्ति के बारे में जानने का सबसे अच्छा तरीका क्या है? उसके फ्रेंड से पूछ लो, उसके फ्रेंड्स को उसके ऊपर छोड़ दो, क्या पता करके आओ कि आपका दोस्त ऐसा क्यों कर रहा है. So Rosencrantz and Gulistan are used as spies. They are merely instruments in the hands of the king, who wants to know the reason of Hamlet's madness because he is afraid of it. So Gulistan and Rosencrantz, who are two former schoolfellows of Hamlet, and now the king's courtier, they are called. The king tells Rosencrantz and Gulistan that he has summoned them in haste as he needs their services. He says, I need something from you. He tells them that Hamlet has undergone a strange transformation, both outward and inward, and that it is not clear what, apart from the grief of his father's death, has caused this transformation. He tells them that Hamlet is behaving in a very strange manner. And this strangeness of behavior is not entirely due to the death of his father. So he wants these courtiers to spy upon Hamlet and know the real reason why he is behaving in such a manner. The queen makes similar requests to these two fellows, and Rosencrantz and Gulistan, they readily accept this offer and say, of course, they will spy on Hamlet and try to know the real reason why he is behaving in such a manner. And then there is another information, envoys written from Norway and tell Claudius that the king of Norway has assured them that he will restrain his nephew Fortinbras from attacking on Denmark. In the earlier scene, we saw how Claudius sends two people to the king of Norway with the request that he should control Fortinbras, his nephew, who is planning to attack on Denmark. So this is a welcome news for Claudius, who is happy to know that now Fortinbras has been controlled by the king. Now, Polonius tells king and queen about his understanding of the reason of Hamlet's madness. In the earlier scene, we saw how when Ophelia talks about strange behavior of Hamlet, Polonius is convinced that Hamlet has become mad because of his unrequited love for Ophelia. Now Polonius gives the same reason to the king and queen and tells them that he knows why Hamlet has become mad. He tells them that it is because of his love affair with Ophelia, in which he was denied by his orders, and so because of this unrequited love, Hamlet has gone mad. So Polonius says that Hamlet is mad because of this unrequited love, because of this rejection in love. Yes, at the same time, Polonius accepts that there is method in Hamlet's madness. This is very significant line. There is method in madness. Method in madness means, although Hamlet appears to be mad, but he is not mad at all times. He doesn't behave strangely in all times. There is method in madness. There is some underlying structure in the antics of Hamlet. But he is convinced that Hamlet is mad because of this reason, because his daughter Ophelia has rejected Hamlet's advances, and because of it he has gone mad. Now Rosencrantz and Gulistan, they visit Hamlet and they try to find out from him the reason for his strange behavior. Hamlet intuitively knows that these two people are not his friends now. They are really behaving like the spies of the king. So he doesn't give them direct reply. He uses, ironical statements and satirical statements to befool them and to tell them that he knows their secrets and they can never hope to understand him fully. Yes. then we get an information that some players have come to the kingdom to stage a play, and Hamlet is happy to welcome the players. Yes, and then Hamlet, gives very um, wise as well as he gives some speeches which tell us about his understanding of the art of drama. And here we suspect that it's not the Hamlet who is speaking, but rather William Shakespeare. He makes very profound comments over the way actors should behave on the stage and the way they should present themselves, the way the dialogue delivery should be made on the stage. And yes, and Hamlet also talks with Polonius in a very satirical manner. He calls him old Zephyr. And he says that, Polonius says that he too had a daughter like Zephyr, whom Hamlet loves very much. But Hamlet says, I do not believe that you love your daughter very much. The actors come, Hamlet welcomes them, recognizes one or two, and then he asks one of the actors to recite a speech. He tells them to recite a speech. And they, the actor gives a speech about murder of Priam and the grief of Priam's wife Hecuba. This is related to the story of Fall of Troy, which was presented in epic of Homer, Iliad. Priam was the king of Troy, Hecuba was his wife, and when Priam was killed, Hecuba was very sorrowful. So the speech which the actor delivers talks about grief of Hecuba over the murder of her husband. And then Hamlet gives a soliloquy in which he says that he would stage a play, and the name of the play is Mousetrap. And through this play, he would try to catch the conscience of the king. Now, why he decides to stage this play and what are various ramifications of this play, we will discuss in the next lecture. I think our time is over. Thank you. I'm stopping it.